You'll hear us talking about the physical side of the game all the time. But what about the mental health side of the game and in life? That plus more on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for June 3rd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. You're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page. You know, we appreciate that. The show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. And trust and believe, it's not easy to make us look good and sound good on the YouTube page. But Ari, he puts his foot into it, man. He really puts a lot of work in behind the scenes, making sure we're looking good and we're consistently where we need to be when we need to be there. So we definitely shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line available for you at 707-654-4693. As we normally do, we'll close out the show hearing from you. Calls, texts, a lot of really good feedback off what we're talking about, plus stuff that we're not talking about, just a lot of really good subjects. I appreciate Raider Nation for that because, again, the great consistent support and feedback that we're getting on the show always fuels the show to some really good stuff. So thank you so much for that. We'll close out hearing from you. Segment number 3. Segment number 2, I want to focus in on something that we don't talk about a lot here on the show, mental health. Right? We talk about the physical all the time when it comes to the NFL. We always talk about, are players going to be available? Are they injured? Are they this, that, and the other? But we don't always talk about mental health. This applies for football. This also applies for life. So I really want to focus in on that, especially the life side of things, because I think it can help somebody, anybody that's listening to this. And if it helps one person, then job's well done, as far as I'm concerned. So we'll do that coming up. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. On Monday's show, I talked about OTAs. This was the final week of OTAs, and then next week we'll have mandatory minicamp, and then they're going to have a break. So we did find out, in fact, that Wednesday, June 4th, that's the day that we'll be available to be out there and speak with Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, some players that they select as well following practice. Practice will be from 10:30 a.m. to 12:15, and then that's when we'll get to meet with coaches and players. So we had the call on Monday's show. Are you going to get a chance to catch up with Patrick Graham? Yes. Right? I kind of anticipated that because we had talked to Coach Carroll. We talked to Chip Kelly, the OC. It only made sense that we talked to the DC, but until they actually confirm that, we don't know. So that's going to happen on Wednesday. Then that'll be the last time this week that we get to check in with the team and players. And then next week, all 3 days, June 10th through 12th, mandatory minicamp. If you're under contract, you have to be there, whether you're participating or not. You have to be there. That'll be open to the media all 3 days. We'll be able to talk to coaches. We'll be able to talk to players following practice. And then after that, boom, crickets, silent, done, finito, right? Just a big goose egg. There'll be nothing until the players report to training camp. And the one thing we know, we didn't find out an official date. The Raiders are working on getting that confirmation right now, which is great news. It will be the end of July, which, I mean, if you watch football and you've been watching it long enough, you know that's about right. That's when they'll report to training camp. It will be in Henderson. Last year it was in Costa Mesa, but this year it will be back at the Raiders facility. But we don't have an official date as of yet. But they are working on it, which is great news. Why is it great news? For the years that I've been here so far in Las Vegas, getting the opportunity, really blessed to have the opportunity to cover the Raiders, it's always different. Every coaching staff is always going to be different when they hold their practices, when they hold their media availability, when they give you the schedule for training camp. John Gruden used to roll out a whole calendar. Like, basically, if you have a calendar and it has all 30 days in the month, or maybe it's a couple months, they'll have it all, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, okay, Thursday's an off day. Friday, they'd have who's going to talk on that day, position groups that are going to talk, coaches that are going to talk. Like, they had it all planned out. So we'd get it one day in our email, and boom, it'd be right there. So what I'd do is I'd always pin the calendar up on my wall at the radio station and just be able to go ahead and check it off. Like you're checking a box of like a calendar off. Like I said, every single day you check another day off and you knew where you were. So that's how it was when Gruden was the head coach. Then Josh McDaniels, Raider Nation, I kid you not. It was like it could change at a drop of a dime, right? We never got anything more than 1 week of like availability. Like on a Monday, we might find out about the whole week, or maybe even Sunday evening, we find out about a whole week. Sometimes we get a text message, the night before, hey, availability for coach has changed to this certain time, or this coach is going to talk, or whatever the case may be. And again, this is just how different coaches operate, right? And coming from New England, I don't know what it was why Josh McDaniels didn't want to get out in front and have a schedule set in stone, but he didn't. And so it was very like hit or miss. And again, don't feel bad for me, right? It's a blessed opportunity to be able to cover the team. So I'm not complaining, but it was just different. Then Antonio Pierce, we had pretty much the whole schedule planned out, even though it was in Costa Mesa. And so, things are always going to change every once in a while. Even if you do have a plan, that's fine. But at least you have, pretty much a pretty good idea of what to expect. I know there was a couple last minute situations that were thrown in there in Costa Mesa last year, but for the most part, it was pretty spot on. So Pete Carroll is going to be different, right? I'm assuming that it's going to be very structured and a whole training camp planned out, but it hasn't been confirmed to us yet. And since this will be the first year that we cover Pete Carroll in training camp format, we just don't know what to expect. But we'll find out sooner rather than later. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty straightforward and be able to be understood. But we do know, for a matter of fact, this Wednesday, June 4th, 12:15, we'll be talking to Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, and multiple players following practice. Also, thought this was kind of cool since Monday was the 2nd of June. And June 1st is a big day when it comes to the NFL. A lot of times you'll see releases, retirements, or others that are designated post June 1st, meaning you can split up the dead salary cap space amongst 2 years. And so a lot of times you'll see teams designate certain moves, transactions that they make, that'll be a post June 1st transaction. Well, got a tweet from at DRD Raiders on Twitter. This is a really good tweet, I thought. He said, when you want to compete in the AFC West, you simply cannot be the dead money leader year in and year out. Raiders cannot continue this trend if they want to beat the Chiefs. You can't do it. So what he tweeted was a picture from overthecap.com and from Jason from OTC, and he said, NFL dead money leaders following post-June transactions. Retirements are not yet official and not included yet. So if you look at this graphic, the 49ers lead the charge in dead money, $92.6 million. Seahawks right behind them with $67 million. Eagles also $67 million. Jaguars $64. Jets at $62. Then you've got the Browns there at $61. The Saints at $52. Rams at $50. And here comes the Raiders at $44.3 million in dead cap space. So to at DRD Raiders on Twitter's point, like, you can't be in that kind of category. Now, there's a couple teams in there that are really good. 49ers, pretty good team, right? Even though they're leading the charge in dead money. Eagles, Super Bowl defending champs. So they're up there at the top. So, I mean, it doesn't always translate to not being a good team if you're leading in dead money, but you don't want that. So 44 point something $million is not where the Raiders want to be. The good thing is this wasn't on John Spytek. It's not on Pete Carroll. They didn't put the Raiders in this position. It was other staffs that were in place ahead of time that gave out contracts that they had to clean up. So all they have to say is, hey, that wasn't on our watch. All we did is do the cleanup work. Now, right now, the Raiders, and I talked about it on Monday's show, have like $96 million in cap space for 2026. And right now, zero dead money. So that's exactly where they want to be. Obviously, that's going to get switched up, changed up a little bit. Obviously, they're going to make some moves and some decisions at the end of the year that can lead to having dead cap money. But right now, their books are pretty clean. So that's a good step in the right direction as far as just having your books where you want them to be. But this staff, that's going to be their job moving forward. John Spytek and company is to keep the books clean. You don't want to be one of those teams like the Saints and the Patriots did it for years that were always up against it, right? They were always like in the red for the cap space, and they have to move a whole lot around to be able to create the cap space that they need. And then they have a bunch of dead cap. You don't want that. Dead cap normally means a bunch of bad contracts. So obviously you saw what the Raiders did this year in free agency. They didn't spend a whole lot of money, and they let a lot of guys walk and get big money contracts elsewhere. So they're doing their part on at least cleaning that up as well. So I think moving forward, you'll see a really good effort from John Spytek and company not to have a lot of dead cap space. Like in the top, let's see, where the Buccaneers right now are at $33 million. And that was what, 1, 2, 3rd. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The Raiders were 9th, so the Bucs were 12th. So there you go, kind of splitting hairs there, but you're always going to get some dead cap money. You just don't want to be, you really don't want to be out there like the 49ers are at $92 million. I mean, that's a boatload of dead cap space, but I think that you'll see the Raiders really do a good job moving forward. So that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to focus in on mental health, the mental health side of, well, everything, life in general, not just football, but life in general. We'll do that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the show, and that is LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clocked out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. All you got to do, go to LinkedIn.com. Matter of fact, you use the hashtag hiring frame to put your profile picture. Add that to your profile picture. That's going to double your reach to qualified candidates. LinkedIn's new feature can help write job descriptions, quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And again, add that hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture, and you're going to reach more candidates quicker. There's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Right now, post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Always really focusing on what the Raiders are doing, focusing on expectations. We talk about win, loss, total predictions, all that good stuff. But a lot of times we don't focus in on mental health. And sometimes it takes something to catch our attention to realize like, oh yeah, hey, need to focus in on some mental health as well, because again, it is so important. And so over the weekend, found out about John Brankus and the fact that he passed away. He was the guy that you probably remember from Sports Science back in the day on ESPN, on Fox Sports. He was the guy that was really interesting as a guy who called into my radio show on Monday. Gangsta Raider called it. He was a guy that unleashed the nerd in him and made it cool, right? Because again, it was talking about, sports type stuff, but the scientific side of things. And I know I used to be locked in and watch that show all the time. Now, in the position that I'm in, I've been so blessed to be able to actually speak with and interview John Brankus at multiple different radio rows that I've been at in preparation for Super Bowl. So I've got to know him a little bit. Did not work at ESPN when he was working there, but still know all about him. Obviously, just from watching the show, you know a lot about him. And what I've always perceived from him is the guy who's super fired up, super excited, loves his job, just a bubbly type personality, right? I mean, one of those guys that you look at and you're like, oh man, he's got the best job ever. He's super happy. Everything's good. Well, just because it looks good and sounds good don't mean it is, right? I mean, and for him, he's dealt with some well-documented depression, right? And there was even, I played this sound on my radio show on Monday where he was on with Marcellus Wiley and talking about a time where he wrote himself off and he actually tried to commit suicide. And if it wasn't for his dog tugging at his pant leg, he would have hung himself, but he didn't because the dog ended up tugging on his pants. And so, then he got a lot of help. But over the weekend, unfortunately, the Brankus family and his Twitter account tweeted out, "It is with profound sadness that we share the news that John Brankus has passed away. John, co-founder of Base Productions, founder of Brinks.TV, and co-creator and the host of the 6-time Emmy Award-winning Sports Science, had been battling with depression. John lost his fight with this terrible illness on May 31st, 2025. His heartbroken family and friends request privacy at this time and encourage anyone who is struggling with depression to seek help." Now, there's a lot that goes into that. That was the statement from the family. May was actually Mental Health Awareness Month, and he passes away on the 31st. So there's that. But just the fact that they say and encourage anyone who's struggling with depression to seek help. Now, the Raiders, they are very focused on mental health as well. And it's very ironic that this coming up Friday, the Raiders are having their alumni mental health awareness retreat, their second annual at the M Resort. And this is a private event. This is not something that fans could show up to. But they are doing it earlier than they did last year. I was actually blessed to be in the position to be there and do my radio show from there. And I was sitting basically at the front door. So all these players would walk in and I had an opportunity to just kind of get up and grab them on the radio and talk to them about mental health and why it's so important that Mark Davis is making sure that they have this retreat for the alumni to get themselves in the best positions possible. And I mean, you heard some really heavy conversations from some of these former Raider players, some of the Raider alumni, about how important it is and why it's important to them. Well, this year, I'm not able to be there, and it's earlier in the day than it was. Last time, it lined up perfectly with my radio show, 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, and it was a blessing to be there. I had some great conversations, some great laughs and all that, but guys like Marcus Allen and Tim Brown and Ryan Hogue and Romanowski, Bill Romanowski, and many others told me straight up how important it was that this event goes on. Brankus was only 53 years old, right? I say it all the time. I'm 48, going on 49 this year, right? Lord willing, I'm going on 49. And I mean, it's just, you never know. Like I say, you never know what someone's going through. I found this out and I really learned it during the pandemic, during 2020. And really, I learned it on my own. I learned it because of something that my dad told me. And I try to share the story as much as possible because it might help someone. But when everyone was deciding whose job was essential and whose job wasn't essential, and at the radio station, ESPN Central Texas, and even here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, we never missed a show. We never missed a day. We never were told, we'll call you when we need you to return to work or whatever, and we were the fortunate ones because there was a lot of people that their jobs were in bad positions during the pandemic. And I remember telling my dad, and and I'm not ashamed of it, but I'm somewhat like embarrassed that I was like, yeah, well, I guess that I'm essential. And I kind of made a joke about it. And he said, no, you are, right? Nobody knows what's going on in the world these days. Everyone's kind of wound up. They're getting information. They're getting wrong information. They're getting right information. They're just getting a lot of stuff thrown at them, and no one really understands what's going on at this stage of the game. So they turn on a radio show, your radio show, even though you might not have a lot of sports to talk about at the time or any sports to talk about, and they're escaping from what's going on, the reality of whatever's going on. They turn on the podcast, and they're escaping from the reality of whatever's going on. And even for a little bit of amount of time, that's their escape. And that is essential for people, moving forward. And I even realized that through my own type of situations that I've had in my life where just coming here and being able to record the show or talk on the radio would get my mind away from whatever's going on in my real life. I say that in air quote, like my personal life that might not be something that I want to sit there and, talk glowingly about, but I can go and focus in on something else for 3 hours or 45 minutes or however long that, we're doing these shows. And so I just think sometimes we have to take a second to realize and even, talk to our loved ones, talk to our family, talk to our friends, and just ask them, like, how are they doing? Right. Again, sometimes you can look at someone and listen to someone and be like, man, that person, they got it all. They're so happy, this and that and the other, and they could be going through it. Again, like I said, John Brankus was a dude that, I always looked up to him for everything that he was, able to do and just the fun, cool stuff that he was a part of. But I mean, inside he was going through it. So, when his family puts out that statement saying, hey, they encourage anyone who's struggling with depression to seek help. Like that's real, right? I mean, there's a number 988 text. You could text that or call that number and you can get some help. You can, talk to a friend or a loved one, and don't hesitate to ask for help, right? If there's someone out there that's going through something, don't hesitate to say, you know what? Something's not quite right. Like John Brankus in this piece that he was talking about with Marcellus Wiley, he said it. He said he had to finally pick up the phone and call his mom and said, hey, Mom, I don't know what it is, but something's not right. Something's not right with me, and I gotta get right, right? And so that was the first step, and sometimes that's what it is, right? I say it at the end of the show all the time, take care of your family, love on your family, most importantly, just win, baby, and all that, but that's real. Like, take care of your family, love on your family, make sure that they're doing okay, right? I try to shout out to the veterans all the time because sometimes guys come back from serving the country and all of a sudden they don't have that structure and they're not in the right place. My guy Vegas Jess tells me about that all the time. And sometimes veterans just need, a pat on the back or hey, how are you doing? Are you all right today? Are you good? Whatever the case may be. And I don't know that. I'm not in that position, but to have someone, a friend tell me that helps a lot. If you reach out to someone and ask them if they're doing okay and check in on them, it means a lot. So I mean, if you have a few minutes in your day, shoot someone a text, give someone a call. But better yet, just call them, right? Instead of text them, call them. Hey man, just call them and say how you doing. My grandma used to do that, man. Back in the day, my grandma used to always do that, and it would blow my mind how she just had that sense of timing. And it was when I was little. We still had house phones then. And she would, like, the phone would ring early in the morning because, grandmas wake up super early. They ain't sleeping in, right? They ain't sleeping in. She calls super early. I'm getting ready for school. And you hear the phone ring. You're like, man, what's this about, right? The phone never rings at this time. And I pick up the phone. I'd be grandma. So I would think that, oh, she wants to talk to my mom. And she'd be like, no, son, I'm just calling to check on you. How are you doing? Huh? Right? What you mean? It's like 7:15 in the morning. I'm tired. I don't want to go to school. But, I mean, here we are, But it was like her timing was always really on point, like she would know something was going on or something wasn't quite right. And normally it was me and I didn't do my schoolwork or I had something that was on my mind, but she would call me and check on me all the time. Hey, how's things going? It was really weird how she did that. But sometimes, our loved ones, our grandparents, our parents, our spouses, whatever the case may be, right? We do that. And we just know that, hey man, I just need to reach out to this person and check on them. So again, I know this is supposed to be, Raiders focus, and I'm supposed to be breaking down the offseason and the team and this, that, and the other. And somebody might have turned this off a long time ago, and that's okay. Because like I said at the top, man, if one person can listen to this and it helps them get through their day or helps them reach out to someone and say, hey, man, I need a little bit of help. Cool. I did my job. I'll take that, right? I'll take the show that's not listened to that much to be more effective and be able to help someone moving forward. So, again, if you got something going on, man, don't hesitate. Don't be too proud. Don't think that we're going to look at you and think that you're soft or something like that. It's not about that, man. It's about you being right and that you just need to do everything you can to try to be right, and your loved ones need to be there for you as well to help you get right. So that's all I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 3, we'll hear from you. Your calls and texts, 707-654-4693. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. You know the number, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Crash Dog calling from L.A. He's calling to talk about win total predictions that bookmakers make coming up in Vegas. Here's Crash Dog out of L.A.
Q, Crash Dog from L.A. Hey, thank you for giving us all your wisdom and knowledge with the Raiders each day. I look forward to it, and I know many others do as well. My question for you is Vegas. How do the odds makers get their predictions? Because last year I would have bet my house they were going to have more than 6.5 wins. And of course we all know what happened, but this year they had 6.5 wins again. And just recently brought it up 7.5 wins. So what do they know that we aren't seeing? Because they seem to get it right more than they get it wrong. So I'm hoping you'll have some insight and wisdom for us on this as well. All right, Q. Thanks again. Just win, baby.
Crash Dog, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. It's funny. It's a lot of simulations that are ran, multiple scenarios punched in. It's a database. It's funny when you start seeing movement, especially on games, that just means that a lot of money is being, brought in on one side or the other. I work with Joe Fortenbaugh, and like that's his life, is betting, gambling, the lines and how they're set, and then all the time on the show, on my radio show on Raider Nation Radio 920, I have Cynthia Freeland on. And she also does a show called The Numbers Game on YouTube. It's really good. But she does the whole analytics thing. And she had the Raiders win total projection at like 7.4, right? She put that at there. And I asked her the criteria. I was actually looking for that interview that we did, and I couldn't find it. I was going to let you hear what she had to say about that. But that's what I asked her off top. Like, how do you come up with these win total projections when you're doing that? And that's what her answer was. It's a lot of projections, a lot of simulations, right? Just running it a bunch of times, putting in some different scenarios, basing it off of, experience, basing it off who's in charge, basing it off of, some of the players and where they rank. And just a lot of it goes into it, but it was a very complicated way of doing things. But more times than not, it's pretty accurate. Now, for the Raiders, I got to give them their credit. For the most part, up until the last couple seasons, they've gone over their win total. There was one time where it felt like every year they were going over their win total projections. But then the McDaniels year hit, and that went under. But they for the most part, they do. And it was at, 6.5, and now it's up to 7.5. And I've been saying 8 wins. So it's funny. It tracks, right? It tracks on basically the combination, because obviously you're not going to have a half a win in real football unless you have a tie. So I guess you could put that in there. But, it's basically tracks, right? If you're going 7.5, and you go over, you're hitting 8. And, well, I've been at 8 pretty much consistently the whole time. So thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. If I do find that interview from Cynthia Freeland, I'll definitely bring it to the table so you can get a better explanation than what I said. She's the analytics queen that I like to call her. She's really good at the numbers game. Up next, got a text from Raiders Q from the 208. Hey, Q, it's Raiders Q from the 208. I feel that the offense should be able to add 6 points per game. Better quarterback play with Geno Smith is worth 2 points a game. A better running game with Ashton Genty is worth 2 points per game. Finally, the most important part, better play calling with Chip Kelly is worth 2 points per game. I can't wait to watch this offense perform this year. That's Raiders Q from the 208. Yeah, that's fine. The thing is, the Raiders need to get to 24. They need to get as close to 24 points per game as possible. However they do it, whoever's responsible for it. Doesn't really matter. It just matters that they get as close to 24 as possible. Where they ranked last year was really, really low, like really low. It was bad. There was only 3 teams that were worse than them in the league. 24 points would have got them to the top 10. That's a big jump from where they were to where they would have been if they got to 24. They need to get close to 24 as possible. I agree. Chip Kelly, offensive play caller, should add a lot of juice. The quarterback play should add juice. Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Big Mike, they should all provide juice as well. The big boys up front, the offensive line are going to have to block really well. They block really well, there'll be an opportunity to execute that offense. If they don't block worth the salt, it doesn't matter who you have out there, right? Gino's not going to be able to do anything from his back, and Ashton Genty can't run while he's being tackled, right? If he's getting met in the backfield all the time. It's just that simple. So, I could see making an argument for 6 more points a game. They just need to do whatever they can in their power to get to 24 points a game or as close as possible. So thanks for the text. Appreciate you. Up next, got a call from 305 Key. He's calling to talk about Christian Wilkins' injury and what level of concern it is for him at this point. Here's 305 Key.
What's going on, Q? 305 Key from the bottom again. Just finished listening to today's episode, and this Christian Wilkins foot injury, I think it might be a reason to be concerned. Big man foot injury, giving me deja vu vibes of Tyree Wilson. I think, I know it's still early, don't want to put the cart before the horse, but this might be a real thing. He could possibly start the year off on the PUP list. So that leads me to think, who's in line behind him? Who are we going to have to fill his shoes while he recovers? If he don't come back. But, we'll find out in another month or so, but I don't think it's looking good. Pete Carroll's admitted that, or confirmed, acknowledged that the recovery has been tough. So there's a chance that he's on the pitch count and maybe he doesn't come back or he doesn't start the year off, active. With that being said, who do we have as depth pieces behind him? Who's going to be the next guy to flash? And I heard a lot of people saying Tyree Wilson is up for a breakout year. Well, my question is, do we slide Tyree inside? I think he is in a breakout year as to whether or not he's going to earn a 5th year option pickup, which currently I don't think he's on the path to do that. I like the young man, but he's just struggled, just honestly. But I think he's showed more flashes inside. So what do you think? What does the nation think? Should we move him inside? Should we give him a shot inside? Let him get some more burn there, and see if he actually becomes that guy who we thought he might be. I don't know. What's your thoughts? I'm out. Raiders.
Thanks so much for the call, my man. Appreciate you. And Wilkins is definitely a concern at this stage of the game. I don't know what level it is of a concern, but when Pete Carroll tells you that his recovery from injury has been challenging, right? It's been difficult. That lets you know a lot, right? And for the most part, coaches kind of give you the coach speak all the time. I think Pete Carroll was pretty honest about his answer. And obviously it's something that they're going to take their time with. They're not going to rush him back out on the field just for the sake of having him out there. He's got to be a guy that contributes in 2025 for the Raiders. He's got to be a guy that makes an impact. The reason why they brought him in, gave him big free agent money, they've got to go ahead and show that worth. Now, as far as depth goes, Adam Butler's there. He just got the contract extension. Laulu's there. Tonka Hemingway, J.J. Pegues. Those guys I know are just rookies, but they just brought them in. Wilson could kick inside. The one thing I would caution about that, because that was an idea that I had a while ago, even when they drafted Tyree, I was like, man, he could play outside, inside. The thing is, he's been so slow to grasp onto what he's supposed to be doing that it was said last year that he needs to master one thing before he tries to do another. So he's got to get a good control of one area before he decides to expand his game, right? And so he got 4.5 sacks last year. He's got 8 total sacks in his career through 2 seasons. Obviously, that's not enough. He started to come on a little bit. So I think that they're going to work him originally outside. But, if they sense all of a sudden that, Christian Wilkins is going to miss a large chunk of time, he's going to start out on the PUP list and might not be available for training camp or whatever the case may be, I can see them running Tyree inside. He looks like he's bulked up a little bit as well from the pictures that I've seen. So we'll see. But my best guess, and we can ask Patrick Graham. I'll ask him on Wednesday. As a matter of fact, I'll write it down. It'll be something I ask. Is there any plan to move Tyree inside or play him in multiple positions? Or do you think he's just an edge rusher at this stage of the game? We'll get his thoughts on that and see what he says. I'm not saying he's going to give me all the answers to the test, but at least you ask, right? So that's what I'll do for sure. I'll write that down, as a matter of fact, in just a few minutes. So thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a quick text from Punk Raider. Says, hey, Q, Punk Raider here. Just a quick one for you. When do we start worrying about the Jack Bech contract situation? Why isn't that finalized yet? Thanks. Go Raiders. That's from Punk Raider. Thanks for the text. I wouldn't worry about it just yet. If it's not done by mandatory minicamp, then I would start to kind of look at it a little sideways, right? Because, again, everyone that's under contract is participating during mandatory minicamp, right? You can't participate without a contract, right? You could be in the building, but you can't be on the field participating at all without your contract during mandatory minicamp. So we'll see. I've heard that the reason why a lot of second-round picks aren't signed yet is because of the guaranteed money that they're working on. There's only a couple of the second-round picks that are signed so far, so that could be the main issue with him. I'm not too sure. I don't think it's going to last that long. I really don't. I mean, I don't anticipate it going into training camp or anything, but you really want him out there for mandatory minicamp when all the guys are out there and they're really, going against each other as much as possible, more than they've gone against each other at any other stage of the game. So I'll definitely update you on that. Like I said, certain outlets are saying that he's already signed, but the Raiders haven't confirmed that. So until they do, I'm with the assumption and I'm going with the belief that he hasn't signed his contract yet. Up next, got a call from JR from the 530. He's calling to talk about the offensive line and shares his concern. Here's JR from the 530.
Hey, good morning, Q. Hey, shout out to Ari for all the hard work he's doing behind the scenes. Hey, my name's JR. I'm from the 530, man, North Cal, Reading area. I've been a Raider fan since 1970. And like many, I've been through the pain waiting for another Super Bowl win since 1984. So I've been a long-time listener, man, first-time caller. I started listening to you a while back. Remember the black hole banter? Yeah, 2016 was a great year, till it wasn't. So even though a true Raider fans, we supported each other and stuck together. So anyway, speaking of support, hey, your thoughts on my concerns about our O-line. I'd really hate to see Geno running around like Russell was while he played for Seattle. And Ashton Genty, his greatness, it possibly being affected like Saquon Barkley's was while he played with the Giants. So, I've got confidence in Colton, JPJ, but the question is, should the O-line be a talking point? A concern? Your thoughts, bud. Hey, Q, hey, man, thanks for who you are. Hey, what you're doing. Keep it real. Love the show. Cheers, bud.
JR, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you chiming in. And, man, you took me back with that black hole banter, right? That's taking it back. Good times for sure. As far as the O-line goes, that honestly could be the biggest concern at this stage of the game, right? I think that we've had a lot of healthy debates about the offensive line, where they're at. Are they the team that, at the first half of the season in 2024 gave up 19 sacks, or the team that in the back end of the season in 2024 only gave up 9? Right, that was the article that I referenced on Monday's show from David Hellman from Fox Sports, and I think that that's a good concern. If that offensive line could be on point, this offense could be really good. We can go back to the point from Raiders Q where he was saying 6 more points. If that offensive line is on point, absolutely. The thing is, it's so hard to evaluate the offensive line in OTAs. It's so hard to evaluate the offensive line in training camp. It's just not, you're just not blocking, and you're not being physical like you do in the regular season, and the way the CBA has the everything set up. You're not practicing the same way. It's just difficult, right? And so Donald Penn had told me when I interviewed him on the show, probably like I don't know, maybe it was a month ago at this stage of the game, but he said, man, the pod drills are going to be so important for this offensive line to kind of learn what they're doing and get in the right shape that they need to be in. And so I've got that written down where I got to go and talk to offensive line coaches, or talk to, Chip Kelly, or talk to some of the coaches when we get into, say, mandatory minicamp or training camp, and ask them the importance of the pod drill. Donald Penn says it's going to be very important to try to get them where they need to go. But I do think that you're spot on. I think the offensive line could be the biggest concern, and it could tell you one way or the other what this Raiders team is going to look like in 2025. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. We'll close things out with a text from Eric in the LBC. He says, Q, we can win more than 8 games. We've been down too long. We can go to the playoffs and hit that Super Bowl. We know how to beat Kansas City. We know how to beat Denver. And we know how to beat the Chargers. As long as our offensive line can hold up and open some holes for a running back, Ashton Genty, we need that offense to click. That's our downfall. So Pete Carroll has a pretty good winning record. That's Eric in the LBC. And sure, you can. The Raiders could go and win 12, 13, 14 games. They can win the AFC West. They can go to the playoffs. They can go to the Super Bowl. I just think that if I said that that's what I felt like they were going to do this year, that would be unrealistic. That'd be me trying to, sell you some unrealistic hopes. Right? I don't think that that's a reality, right? I mean, it's very rare that you see a team going from being as bad as the Raiders were in a year where they won 4 games to all of a sudden going to be the team that went to the Super Bowl. Now, granted, the Washington Commanders are the team that everyone will point to, or the Houston Texans when they had C.J. Stroud his rookie year, how they made the playoffs, and that was a really good year. It was fantastic. They made it to the second round. The Commanders last year, they were 1 game away from the Super Bowl in Jaden Daniels' rookie year. It's possible. But I'm not going to sit there and say, based off the moves that have been made by the Raiders this year, that's where I think that they're going to be. And I don't think anyone in Washington or anyone in Houston was saying that either. So if you feel like that's what they're going to do, that's cool. But I had high expectations for this Raiders defense, let alone, the team last year. And it didn't really track the way that I thought it was going to track. And I know that I got pretty hyped. I know that I, came on this show and was fired up and said, hey, I think this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. So now I've learned, and this is all we're supposed to do, right, is learn as we go through these processes that, okay, well, hold on, confirm, reconfirm, don't jump out too far ahead of everybody before you, all of a sudden start throwing something against the wall. Because again, my job and what I expect of myself is to provide you as much accurate information as possible. So I don't want to sit here and tell you that the Raiders are going to have a top 5 defense or they're going to have a top 5 offense, and then all of a sudden they stink and they're awful and their defense is a no-show or their offense is a no-show, and you're like, Q, what happened? Well, this is what I saw. Well, what did you see? What were you looking at, right? So I take that as my responsibility to be as accurate as possible and realistic as possible. I want to get hyped up as a fan. Look, trust and believe, I'm a Raider fan first, right, before anything else. I want to get fired up. I want to be like, this is the year. They're going to go to the playoffs. They're going to make a deep run. Super Bowl, here it goes. Like, I want to do all that, right? But, again, realistic and being around sports as much as I have, I've learned to, kind of try to slow my roll a little bit and watch things really develop before I sit there and get too crazy with some kind of prediction. So, again, I look at it from a step back, not necessarily my silver and black glasses on, and say, hey, man, this team won 4 games last year. If they double their win total in year 1 with Pete Carroll, they've done something pretty good, right? They've done something pretty good, and they show me that there's truly a path and they're truly on the right track, and that this staff is the staff that you could believe and trust for the first time in a long time, right? That's how I feel. Now, if they get 10, 11 wins and they find a way to get to the postseason, that's awesome, right? And look, we could all of a sudden see them in the middle of the season playing at a high level and be like, you know what? I thought this team was an 8-win team, but this feels a little bit more special. This feels like they really got something cooking. I mean, we can always do that. We don't have to come out in early June and say, hey, man, this team's a 12-win team, Super Bowl winning team. We don't have to come out and say that. That's not, there's no reason. There's nothing that they've done to show that. There's no games being played. There's no pads even being put on. Right? So at this stage of the game, it's way too early to sit there and talk about winning the AFC West and making a Super Bowl run. But I understand, the feeling and the being down for a long time, and they have been. They've been down for a very long time. I would like to see the steps in them getting back to where they need to be, right? Just like John Gruden when he had, when it was John Gruden 1.0, and you started to see this team develop, and he's like, wait, hold on. I think this dude's got something. Remember that game against Kansas City back in the day that they won to end the season in Kansas City in the rain, Tyrone Wheatley game, where he fell to his knees and he's still running? They found a way to win that game. I think personally that game saved John Gruden's job, but that also told everybody this team was headed in the right direction. Then all of a sudden, boom, he got into the 2000s and they were headed in the right direction. Obviously, he didn't get to finish the job, and we know how that all ended up. But that was the game, in my opinion, that really said, all right, this team is going where it needs to go. That's all I need to see from this team this year, is see that they're going in the right direction. Their leadership is right. Their players are right, and they're only getting better, and to feel good about where they head into the future. But thanks so much, Eric, for the text. Definitely appreciate you. And that's going to do it for today's show. Went a little bit longer than expectations, but that's how it rolls sometimes here on the show. I apologize, and shout out to my man Ari for dealing with me when I go a little bit longer than expected. But we'll have more news and notes. We'll get back to more calls and texts. I got a call from Raider X, a really good one. Also, Matthew in Wisconsin hit us with a text. We'll get those tomorrow. We'll get more news and notes for sure. And, of course, we'll have more conversation as well. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. I truly, truly mean that. Love on your family. And most importantly, as always, just win, baby.